All right, everyone, we're going to continue our media availabilities for the day. We're joined by Cole Custer, driver of the 00 Ford for Stewart Haas Racing. Cole, it's been 10 years since your first National Series win here in New Hampshire. Why don't you get us started and tell us what this means for you to be back here today, this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been really special for me going to New Hampshire. I won my first cane, or not my first, but won a cane and race here, and then next year won that truck race here. And it's always been a fun place to really go. It means a lot to win here just because of how hard it is for the teams to get the cars right around these flat corners and for the drivers to try and manage that. But it's always a place. The fans are so awesome here. It's awesome to come back here, and I think reliving that day when I first won, 10 years ago now, which is hard to think, is definitely pretty cool and pretty special.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and get started with questions. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll get a mic to you. We'll start with Jim, and then Bob.
Jim Utter, motorsport.com. So with Gene's announcement this week, I know, I guess there was already some plans with the Xfinity team, but keeping a Cup team was a surprise. Are you hopeful, or are you involved in any of those discussions with those programs about your future for next year?
I think for me, whenever I went back to the Xfinity Series, my goal was always to go back to Cup, So I've been trying to work on what I can do to get myself better over the past year and a half. And at the end of the day, you try and do as best you can, and you hope it all sorts itself out. But I really don't have much to say or anything right now that's solidified or anything. So we're just kind of focused on New Hampshire and trying to win here.
We'll go to Bob, and then Alan, and then Lee.
Bob Hockers, Fox Sports. Well, I asked your dad if you were a candidate for that Cup car, and he told me to ask you. So, do you
That's
feel?
Great.
Yeah. So he put the onus on you on this. So, I mean, do you feel like you're a candidate for that Cup car? Would you like to run that Cup car, or some people prefer not to run for a family?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always, that's what my career's been, I guess, is, it's always tied, that relationship. But at the end of the day, I think, what Gene Haas has done in this sport, and, it would be a dream come true to get to run that Cup car, But for me, I mean, I'm focused on this weekend and trying to figure out how to win here. But obviously for me, I've tried to go back to the Xfinity Series, prove what I can do, and try and make the most of it. And you just kind of try and hope it all sorts itself out from there.
We'll go to Alan.
Alan Cabana, PRN. Now that you're at the ripe old age of 26 and have a lot of maturity and wisdom, what do you think about a 16-year-old? You won as a 16-year-old. Does that blow your mind, thinking about a 16-year-old winning a truck race right now, and what you accomplished and what that's like now that you have 10 years on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think, I mean, at that time, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to go out there and hit the gas and go fast, and hopefully you had a car underneath you that could do it, But now I think you just have so much more knowledge of what goes into it, and on the bad days, you're able to make more the most of it, So before, I feel like when you're that young, it's like if you get thrown a curveball and your truck's not very good that weekend, you're overall just struggling, it's harder to know what to do to make the most of it. Where as a veteran, you just kind of know how to grind away and make the most of a day. But that was one of those magical days where you have everything work out right, you have a great truck, and it all works out.
We'll go to Lee.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. Funny, you and Bob and I are on the same page, right? Kind of curious, I talked to Ty Gibbs about this, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic when your family's involved with the race team, right? But he also said that if he's racing against somebody that he thinks should get a shot, he will say something to his dad or his granddad or his mom. And I'm kind of curious, with the two Xfinity opportunities opening over there, do you have that same kind of input? Does your dad say, because I mean, he can have an educated eye and look at it, but you're the guy that's actually racing against these guys in Xfinity.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that there's been a huge dynamic with that, but there's definitely, he'll at times ask me about some guys, about, who's a good candidate for whatever it is, I guess. But yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He can handle it, but I think, yeah, it is a good thing where I can kind of maybe give him a little bit of feedback on things.
Terrell Cubby with the Portsmouth Herald. So as you look to hopefully fill that opportunity at the Cup level, back-to-back Xfinity championships would be a pretty big feather in your cap. I know it's early to really think too much about that, but could you use a track like this where you've had a lot of success to kind of springboard yourself towards another championship?
For sure. I mean, I always look forward to coming to New Hampshire, and this is a place that's always special coming back to. So I always look forward to it, and you just hope that, you know, you have everything underneath you to go and compete for a win. But I think at the end of the day, we should have a shot at this weekend. Our guys are doing a great job. We just have to break through. You know, I feel like we're top 5 or so every single weekend, and you know, it's very strange to be leading the points, but also a little bit frustrated that you haven't won yet. You know, so I think it's coming. We just got to keep knocking on the door.
Pat Cole at NASCAR.com, where the path seems to be leading you back to the Cup Series eventually. What would the approach be differently now that you've had a couple years to digest and like kind of learn from what you went through in just the past couple years in Xfinity? What's changes now, I guess?
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is just how you communicate with your team. I think at the Cup level, I mean, the top 30 guys, like you give them something underneath them that they can go fast with. You give them a good car, a fast car, they're going to go fast. You know, the top 30 guys all have talent. It's just how you communicate with your team to get that consistently. You know, how you work with your team to fix problems and really be able to hone in on getting the car exactly how you want it every single weekend and consistent. So you just have to really be able to communicate with your team to try and fix those problems. And I've tried to do that over the last year or so and really try and gain knowledge in that area.
Are you a top 30 talent in the sport?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think I can definitely do it. I think when you look at what I've done at the Xfinity level, I think the guys that I've raced against that are in the Cup level now, you know, I think there's no reason why you can't.
Hey, Cole, Doug Rice, PRN. For some athletes to have moved from Cup back over to Xfinity, we would have never heard from them again. You prospered. You went over there. You won a title. What advice were you given, or what did you say to yourself to be so successful in that transition?
I think the biggest thing is you got to look yourself in the mirror. You know, you got to figure out the ways that you can be better. You just can't, you know, put it all off the side and say that you're good enough and that you know, don't need to work on anything. You know, you got to try and work on yourself and try and keep making gains in those areas, because at the end of the day, like, it's never always a perfect situation. You know, you got to try and make the most of it and work with your team and try and fix problems. There's very few weekends, except for maybe the weekend when I showed up here 10 years ago, where the truck's just perfect. You know, you got to go out there and really work at it to make it how you want it to be. So you just got to work on those areas to keep getting better and better.
We'll go to Jim and then Holly.
This is sort of a follow-up to Doug's question. When you were originally told, you know, that you weren't going to stay in Cup and go to Xfinity, I'm sure most people in such situations would think, well, I should stay here, right? But as he mentioned, once you got back into Xfinity last year, won a championship, which Tony Stewart said this was the reason why we did this, what did you find, or did you find anything in particular that you thought you have shown since you got back in Xfinity that maybe will help you on your return to Cup?
I think the great thing that was about our Xfinity season last year, and even this year a little bit, is that it's not easy. You know, it's not like we go out there and win every single race, and you know, just because our cars are way better than everybody's, or I'm way better than everybody, or whatever it is. It's not easy. Like, the Xfinity Series has 15 guys out there that can go out there and win, and if you're off, you're going to run 15th. So having to really work at it and try and work with your team to get the cars better and better and better throughout the year, and have it all come together in the playoffs last year, I think just showed a lot of, I think, just some more maturity and being able to really work through problems and make the most of things.
We'll go to Holly.
Thanks. Holly came to the NASCAR Wire Service. My question kind of plays into that as well. There have been years where it's 2 guys that are racing for the championship all year, but it's really a lot more competitive for you. What is that like, you know, knowing that there's 4, 5, 6, you say 15 guys that can win you know, any week, and how are you approaching it with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just great for the Xfinity Series. You know, there were a lot of years, you know, when Kyle Busch would win 10 races or 12 races, and you know, and I think 2019, when my last year before moving to Cup, it was, you know, me, Tyler, and Christopher Bell that won a lot of races, you know, so it's just, that doesn't really happen anymore. I feel like, you know, you have so many guys that the package has really stayed really similar of the cars. So I think a lot of teams have honed in on how to make their cars better, and it's equaled the field out. But I think it just makes it more competitive, and I think it's good for the series.
Is it enjoyable?
I think so. I mean, you want to be the guy who wins 10 races a year, so, that'd be way more enjoyable. But I think it is cool to get to go and grind it out with a bunch of guys and not have it be easy. You got to go out there and really work for it.
Lee?
So Sam Mayer last week said basically he was just blown away that his phone hasn't rung because he's won 2 races this year. He won 4 races last year. And having gone through they put me up in Cup. I'm not in really a competitive equipment. Now I've got to come back again. Would you have rather been in a situation where you had a team that you could compete in the top 15 all the time and kind of show what your potential was? And is it a game changer when you're not, and then you have to go back, prove yourself? I mean, you've done it, John Hunter's done it. There's a handful of people that have done that. Is it better to, I guess, maybe be a little more mature and wait for the right opportunity to come than any opportunity to come in Cup? And my follow-up to that is, if indeed, who are the people, and you race against them, who are the guys that we should be looking at in Xfinity right now that have the potential to one day be Sunday drivers?
Yeah, I think, man, what was the first part of the question? It was, what was the first part?
Well, the going back and forth.
Yep.
If you come up when you're mature, your
Mhm.
talent, because you're seeing guys like
Mhm.
Hamlin right now peaking at 43, 42,
Yeah.
43 years old. And, sometimes when you rush, you all want to get to Sunday.
Mhm.
But there's a right time to get to Sunday with the right team on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Well, I think the hard part about Cup is that the opportunities are, it's not like there's just a ton of them. So you take them when you can get them, it's not like you're going to get one every single year, an opportunity to go Cup racing. So a lot of guys, you got to take that shot even, no matter what the car is a lot of the time. And you see a lot of guys, say Truex, he didn't get to Gibbs till he was, later in his career, and different guys that have gone that path. And but at the end of the day, if you can go Cup racing, you go Cup racing. It's definitely the place every driver wants to be and compete against the best.
So who are the drivers we should be looking at as potential Sunday drivers that you race against?
I think Chandler Smith does a good job. I think Carson Kvapil, obviously, he was really impressive at Martinsville and Dover. I'd have to really look at the list, but that definitely kind of top of my mind, I guess.
We'll go to Deb.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Cole, I kind of want to go back to what Holly and Jim were talking about. When you were saying you needed to look at yourself in the mirror and evaluate everything, looking back and analyzing when you were in Cup, what do you see as mistakes that you made that you would give advice to another younger driver coming along of watch out for this, don't do this, or things that you have corrected now where you made your mistakes in Cup the first time?
I think just knowing how you need to communicate with your people, like kind of what I've said before, if that isn't right, it's just not going to work, and you just have to make sure that you can go out there and really work with your team and, try and fix problems the best you can. And if you're not able to talk with your team openly and really fix those problems, that's where it gets tough, So I think that would be the biggest thing that I'd probably learn from.
So how do you know when it's time to make a change?
I guess whenever you get that feeling, that's all I can really say.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any final questions for Cole? All right, thanks, Cole. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you, guys.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.